Hi, everyone. This is Connie Zack, co-owner of Sunlighten, with our Enlighten with Sunlighten series, one of my favorite things to do. And I am thrilled to have a wonderful guest. I can't wait to dive in and hear her story. I have Alison Gannett, who is a personalized nutrition and lifestyle coach who has overcome terminal malignant brain cancer. She's also a champion skier. I can't wait to hear all about that as well. But what's really just fascinating is your just mission to help others. And I want you to, why don't you start off by, sharing a little bit about your story and why you got into that. Welcome, Alison.
Oh, thanks for having me, Connie. It's great to be here. And I don't know, I've had a crazy life. I think I was a fat, dorky math geek, and then I kind of overcompensated and became a world champion extreme skier. I'm the crazy person you see who jumps off cliffs on
amazing
TV and movies and traveled all over the world. And then all of a sudden I thought I was just the healthiest person in the world, even running our own 80-acre organic farm and being a climate change consultant. And all of a sudden one day in 2013, I was diagnosed with terminal cancer, brain cancer, and given 6.8 months to live. And holy moly, did my life change in a hurry.
So stop there, because I want to know, like, how did you even how did you even approach going and finding out what was going on that caused you to get checked out, I guess?
Well, my husband thought I was behaving kind of strangely. I know I had one of my biggest keynote presentations in my life for Microsoft International. I forgot to get on the plane, and I got on the stage, and I actually don't even remember the presentation I gave. So all these strange things were happening, but it's hard to describe because I actually didn't notice, because my whole perception was altered. My depth perception was altered. My memory was altered. But one day I was cooking bacon on the stove and it caught on fire, and the flames were going up to the ceiling. And instead of reacting like a normal person, I was just mesmerized by the flames.
Oh.
And at that point, my husband was like, "We're going to the ER, something's wrong."
Wow. So then what happened next?
They did a scan and they found a tumor. We'll show the pictures probably. It's, somewhere a little bit bigger than an orange, sitting in most of my skull. And at that point, it was emergency surgery, and then, just cascade of events that happened after that of what to do next.
So from what I've read, you really chose, a natural path, primarily. Is that correct? And I'd like to know, what was your thought process of, okay, what do I go from here?
Well, originally I had a partially successful surgery. So that was a 10-hour process. And then I was so sick from the surgery that they actually said, "Look, we can't start chemo and radiation and clinical trials right now because you're so sick. So go home and recover for 6 months." And during that recovery period, I started to do research. And the doctors at the time had said, "Oh, don't worry. We had a good surgery. You're young and you're healthy." And then I found out online that actually, my average survival time was 6.8 months. So I don't think they were trying to be mean, or I think they were trying to be optimistic, but they really weren't telling me the truth. And it was at this point that I found Dr. Nasha Winters, and I went to a 4-day retreat with her.
How did you find Dr. Winters?
Oh, it was kind of a friend of a friend. And, one day I was picking kale at a friend's house because I heard kale was good for you. And it turns out that after I worked with Nasha, that I have genetics that don't process kale. So it was kind of ironic that that's what I was eating at the time. But anyway, the long story short is that she explained of all the different, she calls it the terrain 10, the different things that contribute to a cancering process, or a dis-ease. Disease is, lack of ease. And, she explained sugar, sleep, stress, hormones, vitamin D3, immune system, viruses, inflammation, mitochondria, genetics, epigenetics, toxins, dental issues, mold, too much exercise, not enough exercise, mental, emotional health, and angiogenesis. And all these things kind of created this perfect storm that is cancer. And it just made sense to me that, cancer just didn't happen by chance to me. That I thought I was healthy, but once I looked at my labs and my DNA and my health history, I realized that the check engine light was on for most of my life. And that the big C word was something that just made me, wake up, Alison, time to really get healthy. What you thought was healthy was not really healthy. And, I had all these things that were going wrong with my body. I had arthritis from my ski career. I had yeast infections, bladder infections, bronchial infections, polycystic ovarian disease. I had breast fibroids. I had Hashimoto's thyroiditis. I had seasonal allergies. All of these things that I thought were normal turned out not to be normal, because they've all gone away now. So I don't really think of it as like a natural approach. I think of it as, let's dig into what the root causes are, and let's reverse those root causes one by one. NAISHA isn't for or against conventional medicine. There's a right time and a place for certain things. But my DNA testing, both of my tumor pathology testing and also my own personal genetics, didn't actually support the use of chemo or radiation for my case.
Wow.
So that was actually a relief for me to find out that it wasn't the right tool for my type of cancer. So I had to really go after what I call the stress, the insulin, and the toxins, my S.I.T little acronym, because that big long list that Dr. Nasha gives all of us is kind of a mouthful. And I think it kind of distills down to those three main things.
Well, so for those of you who are just joining us, this is Connie Zack, and I am here with Alison Gannett, who is a personalized nutrition coach, and sharing her story of how she has overcome cancer and kind of her mission and her why. And so excited to have you all. I do want you to know that we will be taking questions, and I always make sure that I get to all of them. So I may not get to it right when you ask it, but happy to make sure that we get your questions answered. So feel free to put them in the chat, and we'll get to them during the broadcast. So just wanted to make sure and say that for those people that just popped on. So getting back to your story, so it wasn't really about one path. It wasn't really about, Western, or alternative, right?
Right.
It was just about understanding what was going on. And then, so what are some other things that you did to really dig in and understand the root cause?
Well, there's so much. I could talk for hours and hours, but I mean, immediately we have to look at a low carb diet and a high fat diet. I don't even call it ketogenic anymore, because people really think of that as weight loss. I think of this as more of like a metabolic therapy, because somewhere between 94 and 96% of all cancers prefer glucose or some kind of glucose-driven pathway as their preferred fuel. So you want to pull the rug underneath cancer by restricting carbohydrates, and then also giving an alternative fuel source, which is a lot of healthy fats. I actually eat approximately 2.5 cups of fat a day. It sounds gross, but it's actually delicious, because I get to have ice cream and brownies and deep fried chicken and things like that. I have a very plant-based diet, but not in the way you think of vegetarian. I was actually vegetarian and vegan for 17 years. And because of that, I ate a lot of carbohydrates. I don't think I was a very good vegetarian. And it turned out my genetics were actually, I do not process grains and legumes as part of my DNA.
Wow.
So I was on the wrong path for my genetics, and everybody's different. And I like to think that no two people are like, no two diets should be the same, that we should really get into customized nutrition plans and customized lifestyle plans. That's what I did with myself, with Dr. Nasha in 2013. And then I trained with her in 2014. And I have a business called Customized Oncology Nutrition to prevent and conquer cancer. And I've been on that mission ever since, because I like to pay it forward. You know, I have never felt better in my life now at 50. How old am I? 6, I think. I feel better now than I did in my 20s. So cancer is like kind of a curse, but also this unbelievable blessing, because it's changed my whole life for the better.
Wow. I mean, that's just so inspirational, because, you know, like you can just tell by like listening to your story that, you know, you've done something really, I mean, people would say miraculous. And so I'm sure people who are watching, like, want to know more about, like, you're making it sound simple, and I know it's not, you know, so maybe you can help us by explaining some of the details, like walking us through, like you said, you go into the S.I.T acronym as far as how to, you know, live. Can you talk us through that?
Yeah, I believe that stress, and that can be like a mental, emotional stress, a physical stress, can also be like a viral stress, autoimmune stress, sleep stress, all those things were completely out of whack for me. And for most of the modern world, I think we live in kind of a stressful condition. It used to be that we had stress hormones to run from a tiger, like if something was going poorly and we were out on a deer hunt. But literally, we're running from a tiger like 24/7 these days. Insulin's the second big one. A lot of people talk about sugar, but sugar's kind of just one of the many indicators we're really looking at is insulin resistance. And insulin resistance is kind of another dis-ease condition of our modern society. We didn't used to have access to vegetables year round, to frozen foods, to processed foods. I didn't really know it. I grew and raised all my own food on my farm. And when I tested my insulin resistance in 2013, my insulin was through the roof.
Oh, wow.
I thought, you know, eating peaches was healthy, you know, making tomato sauce and eating 20 tomatoes in a sitting was healthy. And I didn't realize that those things affect blood sugar and can feed cancer cells. Cancer cells actually prefer fructose over table sugar, for example, or sucrose. So if you gave cancer cells in a petri dish the choice of like a peach or olive oil, they're going to go after the peach every time. And if you gave them a choice between peach and a Snickers bar, they're probably going to choose the peach as well.
Wow.
It has more fructose in it than the Snickers bar does. So there's a lot of misinformation out there on health and nutrition. And I think what's exciting now is that we can use labs and we can use DNA to really tailor every single person's nutrition to their own uniqueness. And gone are the days where it's like, you should be a vegetarian, or you should be a carnivore, or you should be keto, or you should be paleo. Like, let's throw all that out of the window and let's eat the right nutrition for your DNA.
That's, I mean, so well said. I mean, but again, like, it sounds like you're making it sound so easy, and I know it's not. Like, how, okay, well, first, so let me table that question. I want to go back to first the stress, because you mentioned so many different types of stress that people are under every single day. Like I totally agree. Like, we're running from tigers nonstop, right?
Yep.
So how do you, because I mean, this is what you do, is to coach people through this, right? I mean, that's the, how do you yourself, manage stress? And then how do you coach other people through trying to like stop running from tigers?
Well, I was the worst. If you look at my DNA, I am the picture perfect, ever ready bunny. So, in our society, that's rewarded for being super successful, multitasker. I had to really not shelve that part of my personality, but I focused my energy into saving myself versus the million nonprofits that I worked on, saving the planet. I really had to go inside. And interestingly enough, I had a reoccurrence in 2018 and I was like, oh, what the heck? I'm working so hard here to change every aspect of my life. But when I really looked at what I had done and what I hadn't done on Dr. Nasha's list, there were two big things that came up. One was I hadn't gotten a radon test at home. So I was actually literally breathing radioactive air every single day. So I immediately got that fixed. And then I got my heavy metals tested and I realized pesticides, herbicides, all my lead, zinc, copper, cadmium, all like crazy, crazy high. And so I immediately bought a sauna, a Sunlighten sauna. And I immediately have been on this journey ever since where I'm in that sauna every single day. I take a binder. It's called GI Detox. And I take that about an hour before I get in the sauna in the morning. Because when you're sweating both externally on your skin and you're also sweating internally. You're freeing up toxins and they're going to your liver and to your kidneys, but they need to be brought out of the body. And the organs are called emunctories, which means it's going to purge it out of the body, whether it's the skin, the liver, or the kidneys. The easiest way to say is we want to get it out in our poop, our pee, and our sweat. And so I get in that sauna faithfully. I sweat like crazy. All kinds of crazy stuff comes out of my body. We'd have to have a whole nother podcast. The smells and the rashes, and it's been nuts. And I had no idea that for decades and decades and decades, I had been drinking water that had heavy metals in it. And then just being exposed, even though I'm on an organic farm, there's so many chemicals in the world that you're exposed to on a daily basis. When I tested my chemical load, I mean, you would have thought that I lived in downtown Tokyo. No offense to Tokyo.
Oh my goodness.
But my chemical load did not look like an organic farmer living out in the middle of nowhere. It looked like I lived in a city. And the great thing is now that I've been sauning for, has it been like 2.5 years? I retest about every year to see where I'm doing on my chemical load to like prove that it's actually working. And it's amazing. Like you can see the results before and after. It's incredible. That's
great. And I'm glad that you're testing, because I always encourage people to do that. It's really important to see where you're at and, how you're progressing. And we have, wonderful stories from so many people with heavy metal toxicity. I mean, that's why we started our business in the first place. Yeah. So I'm happy to hear that it's working for you. So where do you think the mercury specifically, where do you think that came from? Like, where did you,
I didn't have any fillings. So the mercury for me was completely airborne.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
So on that note, like, how do you recommend to people, if you didn't have fillings and you're not eating fish, some of the just normal, natural, ways to get it. And it's ever like, how do you recommend to people that they can protect themselves?
Oh, that's a long, difficult question because, even if you do have fillings, like Dr. Nasha doesn't recommend that you just go pull them all out because you can free and flood your body with mercury. So pulling mercury out gently in something like a sauna is a really good way to go. And the nice thing is about, you know, the far infrared rays are going to really help with detoxification. And the reason I bought a Sunlighten is it also had the near infrared rays, because a lot of dis-ease is mitochondrial damage. Mitochondrial damage then leads to inflammation, which then leads to cancer, heart disease, diabetes, dementia, et cetera, et cetera. So if you can get at the root cause of the mitochondrial damage, the near infrared sauna has been shown to repair DNA. So I'm really using both aspects, the far and the near infrared, to really kind of like double up on my treatment. And the nice thing is one of the biggest things for me stress-wise is I really hadn't committed myself to meditation. And when I had that reoccurrence, I knew that I was kind of faking it as far as my mental health. Like I was saying, well, I've gone to a few, like, you know, therapists. I've done a little bit of emotional work. You know, I'm good. And what I really realized in 2018 is that I had to dedicate myself to daily meditation practice. So on the day that I bought the sauna, I also committed to getting in there every day and meditating for 30 to 45 minutes. So it's kind of my sanctuary, my altar in there. And I also take all my supplements while I'm in there. Drink my water, also my water with Himalayan sea salt or Redmond's real salt, so that I can get my electrolytes while I'm in there. I have a little gratitude practice in there. I also have Kuan Yin, a little statue, 2 statues of her. So it's kind of, at first I hated it. I have to say, I didn't want to go in there and sweat. I didn't want to like go in and do my meditation, but I knew I had to. And so I made myself. And then after a while, it just became like my sanctuary. Absolute. Like I can't imagine starting a day off in any other way, because it resets me. I'm wired to be high strung, but when I get into that nice space, it's just like, you know, I just come down like 10 notches. And
yeah, it's the same thing for me. It's just immediately, like I always tell people, it's like I didn't realize before I got into my sauna how high my shoulders were and how like tight I was. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is just, you know, amazing. So when you say you have a gratitude practice, tell me about that. I love that.
Well, you know, I've heard this saying, you know, for what are you grateful? What brings you joy? What is your life purpose? Because, you know, if we're going to live in this body and I want to live a long, happy life and die of old age. When I was told I could do surgery, chemo, and radiation, and I would have, you know, maybe a year or 2, that wasn't enough for me. I wanted more. So I practiced presence. So trying to not think about the future and not thinking about the past, because when I'm in that perfect moment, you know, there is no cancer, there is no financial stress, there is no worrying about the cows giving birth in the orchard at that moment. You know, you're just present. And when you're just present, you have this, just incredible sensation of, I just don't think I'd ever experienced it before in my whole life. Everything was always anxiety about the future or worrying about the past. And so I try to think about that, of just being present. And then I also, either at the very beginning of my sauna or the very end, I read this book. It's called A Daily Dose of Sanity by Alan Cohen. And every single day, you know, so it has a date, and you open it up and it has a quote, and then it has a little story, a little anecdote, and then like a little kind of like prayer or reminder that you can say to yourself. And it's really like, it's gratitude, but it's also like a little life lesson. And so I really rely on that every day because it inspires me. And I also sit there and tell me, you can think of this glass, of course, as being half empty or half full. So I can say, okay, life sucks. I have cancer. I haven't had enough money for this treatment, that wasn't covered by insurance, why me? Or I can sit there and go, wow, like cancer has taught me so much about my own health. It has empowered me to look at my own labs. I know exactly where every single marker is on my health and how it is in relation to optimal ranges. I know every single thing about my DNA that we know about our DNA, which of course we're learning so much more every day. So I know what foods my DNA likes and what they don't like. I've learned so much about my spirituality, my mental health, my viruses. Like I guess I really would say thank you, cancer. It's hard to believe that would come out of anybody's mouth, but a lot of people have talked about having a near-death experience and having it just, it's almost like a rebirth. You can choose to, get stuck in that old paradigm, or you can say, what I thought was normal actually got me sick. And so there's a new normal. Mm-hmm. And instead of being scared of that, which I was a lot in the beginning, like, who am I? What do I do now? And then you realize that the new normal is a much better version of yourself. And then it all becomes worth it.
That's just so inspirational. I really want to hear more about this present aspect, because I just think, in this crazy, busy tiger racing world, I love that, like visualization. We get so wrapped up in most people, it seems like, in the anxiety of the future, anxiety of what may happen, anxiety of what may not happen, all of that. I hear that more than the past. But I agree with you. I think the most powerful thing in the world is being right here where we are and having this conversation with you and hearing your story and sharing. I mean, there's just no place I'd rather be than right here, So tell me more about, like, what do you sound like you have, like, kind of what I call, like, little, like, tricks or little ways to, to program your brain. Cause that's a muscle, and to think about the present. Like, what are some things that you do?
There's several, little kind of mantras that I use.
Yeah. Tell me.
So one I do with my prayer beads, which is Namo Quan Chien Pusar. And that is, praying to the goddess of compassion in the Hindu religion. And so I just say that over and over with my prayer beads, like really slowly and meaningfully, maybe 200 times. So that might be one morning's practice. And then Thich Nhat Hanh's saying, he has one that I have arrived, I am home, in the here and the now, in the ultimate I dwell. So that's another one that I love. And I'll say that 200 times for the morning, and really feeling it, not just saying it, not just trying to get it over with kind of thing. And by saying it really slowly and emphatically, either one of those two mantras, I feel that it starts to go like cellular, because all you're focusing so hard on the words that there is no future and there is no past. And be here now, which is a very common one. I wouldn't say that's a mantra, but more like, a saying. And then there's a Christian one that I use, which is be still and know that I am God. And you don't have to use the G word, but being still, you can say it very slowly, be still and know, or you can just say be still, or you can say just be, because ultimately the end of that practice is you just keep taking a word off of that saying until all you're left with is be, because that's really all we are is. And so I have a lot of different mantras. Those are probably my favorite 4 that I use in the morning. But again, sometimes my gratitude practice sends me off in a completely different direction. Maybe the day's focus is surrender or dissolve, or I don't know, there's a million words that I could come up with.
Mm-hmm. And you when you do this practice, Alison, you do it inside your Sunlighten?
Yep. I sit, I have a 2-person impulse, and so I sit sideways, and then I have a couple blocks with a clean towel set up, and then I have it facing my altar with all my meditation books and my gratitude books and my statues, and then also my salty water and my supplements and my prayer beads. And so, you know, everybody can make it their own, you know. Right. It's just, I use clean towels every day too, because part of my thing is to either take a shower and scrub vigorously, or right after the shower while I'm still super, super hot, scrub vigorously to, again, get the skin really clean, because you are having those toxins come out of your skin with the heat and the sweat, but you don't want to reuse the same towel, or you don't want to put on the same shirt. You want to get them off your body.
Yeah, that's great advice. So let's get back to the S.I.T acronym, because we started, you did a great job of helping us understand the way, like different types of stress and ways to remove stress. And we talked about insulin and, you know, paying attention to the different types of sugars, you know, especially with fructose being one. I didn't know that fructose was one that, you know, cancer cells like. But we haven't talked about, you know, toxins. And so take us through that.
Oh, you know, toxins are crazy. Like I said, I live in rural Colorado in a tiny town on an organic farm, miles from anyone. You would think that my toxin level was low. I've heard a saying that if you wash your hair, you go to the post office, you go to the bank, you go to the gas station and the grocery store, and you come back home, you've been exposed to 200 different chemicals in that short little journey.
Wow.
So literally every single product that we use on our body, also all the cleaning products we use, all the items that we buy, such as new furniture, new cars, plus like little things like the receipts we get at the gas station or the grocery store, or, you know, there's just additives and paints and stains. And then not to mention, you know, I heard the other day that a conventional apple has 47 different pesticides on top of it, and that 7 of them are known human carcinogens. So, you know, an apple of the day will actually keep the doctor at your door, not keep the doctor away. And there was actually even a study that proved that, where they gave people an apple a day, and they actually showed that their health declined. So I don't think it's the apple itself. Well, we have bred the apples these days to be super sweet. You know, apples used to be tiny and sour and very, very full of potent antioxidants. Now they're big, giant sugar bombs. But they're also covered in chemicals. And so our food is covered in chemicals. I also use EWG to check on their tap water drinking database. And you enter in a person's zip code. So I enter in all my client zip codes. And then it shows how many carcinogens are in your water.
Oh, wow.
And it is a really great resource for me to tell, like, how important it is. Like, do you need to run out and buy a water filter that day? Or do you need a whole house filter? Or is your water so contaminated that you might actually want to consider selling your house?
Is that a test? What is EWG?
Environmentalworkinggroup.org. It's a nonprofit. And so, like, if you want to look up anything, like if you want to see if your shampoo contains chemicals that are harming your health, you can go to EWG and then you click on Skin Deep, And then it will show you, like, you basically type in what your brand is, what kind you're using, and it will rate it on green as good, yellow as not so good, and red as terrible. So when I first got cancer, everything I had was organic. I'm a climate change scientist. You know, I'm really sensitive to chemicals. I literally had to throw out my whole medicine cabinet, my whole cleaning cabinet, and start over. I basically just use coconut oil, vinegar, baking soda, and salt as my cleaning products and my beauty products now. I've gotten rid of almost everything.
Wow. And so how does it test? So I understand the products, that makes sense.
Oh yeah, the
water.
So the water, yeah. What it does is it has a database of every single municipal water system in the entire country.
Okay, that's fantastic. Yep. So by your zip code, it knows.
Yes. So then, like, so say you're in Memphis, Tennessee, then you put in Memphis, and then it'll give like all the subdivisions, and then you choose like your water company, and then it'll show you what's in it. And this is comparing chemicals. You know how oftentimes we'll get a water report back, like where I lived, where I got all the lead and cadmium from, is a mining town in Colorado. And we knew that the lead and cadmium was high, but it wasn't exceeding the EPA guidelines. Mm-hmm. So it was supposedly safe. The problem is the EPA guidelines are not very rigorous. So, I mean, can anyone really say that there's a safe amount of lead that should be in your water? I mean, I would think the answer should be 0. So the nice thing is about EWG is they've put the known acceptable safe standards for humans versus the FDA accepted range for toxicity. So I'm always looking for my clients, I'm always looking at their water, number one, then I'm looking at their air quality. You can look that up online. I look if they live near a Superfund cleanup site. I also look if they have PFAS contamination. I don't know if anybody knows about that. That's just a whole class of chemicals that is in flame retardants, Teflon, and firefighting. Call them forever chemicals. They're really, really scary. Then I can look at the radon database online and see if my client lives in an area of radon. Most of my clients are international, so I actually have to do that on an international basis as well. But that's the great thing about the computer now, is you can really like figure out a lot of things that might be contributing to a cancer growing cause, or, you know, if it's not cancer, it could be something else.
So that's a service that's part of your coaching, Alison, yes. That's phenomenal. Good for you. That is so cool. I
look at 80 lab markers, and I look at thousands of DNA markers. I'm looking at all the environmental possibility for contamination, because, you know, disease just doesn't live in a vacuum. It doesn't happen from one thing. I kind of describe it as like the perfect storm, or say a hurricane. If you're going to have a hurricane, high winds alone does not make a hurricane. You know, barometric pressure doesn't just make a hurricane. A lot of rain doesn't make a hurricane. All the things have to come together for the perfect storm to make a hurricane. And that's true of most autoimmune diseases, most heart diseases, diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease, cognitive decline, cancer. All the diseases of kind of our modern day world really boil down to thousands of factors that most of them all fall under my acronym of stress, insulin, or a toxin. So I like being Sherlock Holmes. It's like,
yeah,
detective work, you know, it makes it really fascinating. It turns like my scary diagnosis into something that's really exciting to figure out and put the pieces of the puzzle together. And I don't know, I just have a lot of fun with my job, with my clients, because, you know, once you figure out how you tick, it's just really, truly amazing that we have this ability in this day and age to do that.
Yeah, that is really super cool. So how do people find you? And then how, like, it sounds like, since you said all your clients are international, obviously everything is virtual, right?
Everything's virtual, yes. So it's all video. And, you know, I am so busy that I have had to hire a whole team of nutritionists and train them in my methodology. So I'm actually in the middle of a class right now teaching a whole new group of nutritionists, and actually also a couple nurses are in my program as well. So I think this type of detective work is not really taught in medical school. Nutrition is not really taught in medical school. I think that we are having to create a whole new way of wellness, because the way we have our medical system set up right now is like, I break my arm, I go in there and they fix it. I go in and get cancer and they give me, you know, drugs or chemo, radiation, clinical trial that is going to fix it. But we're never looking at like why I broke my arm, or why I got diabetes, or why I got Alzheimer's. I'm not saying I have these things, but we're never looking at why for anything. We're just looking at, okay, what can we do to like Band-Aid it up?
Yeah, that's so true. So, okay, so many questions. So, how did you become, and also, I know I'm asking a lot of questions, but just remind if anybody else has something.
We've got a lot in the chat room there.
Are there, can I see the chat room?
I got to put my glasses on. Oh, someone wants a picture of my sauna set. We can do that.
There we go. Okay. Oh, holy cow.
Equivalent on in Canada. Yeah, I can answer all those questions for sure.
Okay, so let's start, and then we'll come back to some of the other ones that were on my mind. So Jamie's asking, what test do you recommend for seeing your chemical load?
Depending on the person, like first I would look at your labs to see what areas might be of concern. For example, if you have high HDL cholesterol, that is an indicator that you might have a very high toxin load, or if you have high monocytes. So if you showed up with, there's a bunch, maybe 10 different indicators that I look at that can show that you have a potential toxin load, or that I look at your health intake form and, oh, you grew up at Love Canal, or you worked in the Gulf War, you know, things like that. There's the Quicksilver mercury tri-test, and it's combined with another heavy metal test. It's a combo test, those two together, and it's hair, urine, and blood. That I recommend because that shows past current heavy metal exposure for both mercury and other heavy metals, and that's Quicksilver Scientific. Great Plains Laboratory, GPL, recommend for glyphosate testing, and that's, you know, to see how much Roundup you have in your blood. I don't even live near any GMO corn or soy operations. I had a massive amount of Roundup in my blood. Still can't quite figure out where it came from. Probably childhood. It's probably decades old. Quicksilver Scientific also has a pesticides and herbicides test. And then they also have a test that is what is it called? It's basically to test for like PFAS and like exhaust fumes, and it's like all the, I think it's called like other contaminants. I can't quite remember. I can get the name of the test for you, but I use those 4 tests. Also GPL, Great Plains Lab, has a mycotoxin test. Mold is huge. And it's also why I vent my sauna every day. After I get out of the sauna, I always leave the door open for probably 10 hours. Oh, wow. So I make sure I'm never having any mold accumulation happen inside the sauna.
That's really, really good advice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really, and really good resources. So Roberta asks, is there an equivalent EWG in Canada? Do you know that?
Most of my Canadian people can use EWG for all their beauty products, their home products, and their cleaning products. For their zip code, what I usually do for Canada is I actually Google that town, and there's a radon map of Canada that you will come up with, and it'll show red for lots of radon, orange for medium radon, and then yellow for low radon. And then you can also Google the air quality of your area, and you can also what did I use for zip codes for Canada for drinking water? I think I actually just pulled up the drinking water report for each town of all my clients. I have probably 30% of my clients are in Canada. So I look up Canada a lot. And then I look really, really closely at the water report. I'm looking a lot for especially radium. So radium and uranium that's in your water is going to indicate that your home is likely has radon. And that is a really big air pollution contaminant. You're breathing radioactive air all the time. And radioactive air or air pollution is one of the main causes of brain cancer. It's also a huge cause of lung cancer. So a lot of times people are so focused on like, are you a smoker? And they overlook the fact that they're breathing radioactive air or drinking radioactive water every day.
Wow, such great information. So we're starting to run out of time. So I want to make sure, number one, that people know where to find you. And also, if you are accepting new clients, are you still accepting new clients? And like, if I wanted to, hire you to be my Sherlock Holmes, how does that happen? What happens next?
So my website is AlisonGannett.com, ALISON. G as in George, ANN as in Nancy, ETT as in Tom.com. And right now I am so swamped that I am actually not taking any clients until January. 2 of my staff members are taking clients, and then I'm in the middle of teaching a class. I have 15 amazing students right now from all over the world. They will probably half of them be working for me full time when they're done. So what I want to do is create, right now I have a program that's mostly focused on customized oncology nutrition for cancer. But I want to have a program that's like basically for wellness, to prevent diseases like cancer and Alzheimer's, heart disease, and diabetes. And then I also want to have kind of a quick and dirty DNA analysis, because if you send off and get your DNA report done, you get it back and then you're kind of like a deer in the headlights, and you kind of need someone who reads thousands of these like myself to go through your DNA and say, okay, for example, I can't process saturated fat, so I can't eat coconut oil. I can't eat palm oil. I can't process caffeine very well. I don't process kale and other brassicas very well without supplemental B6 and 5-methylfolate. I have ApoE4, which is a precursor, a gene that people call the Alzheimer's gene, but what it really means is that I have an inability to process carbohydrates and that I can't process saturated fat again. Another one is I have TCF7L2, which means I have the inability to process grains and legumes. And, but all these genes for people, I want to create a program so that everybody can have access to that kind of program.
Yes, that would be great. That would be great. So if somebody wants, and I actually have some people, and so this is kind of a personal question, but also for public, that I have some people that in mind that I really feel that I'd love to connect them with I know you're not doing it, but so you're saying that there's people that are part of your organization that will take them on as a client.
Yes. And everybody on my team, we all work together. So basically, if you sign up with one of my team, then you're also getting me, because we all work on everybody together to problem solve cases.
Okay.
And I also have a do-it-yourself DIY program. It's called, right now it's kind of loosely based on keto, but it is really primarily based also on the stress, insulin, and toxins, my S.I.T acronym. It's how to de-stress your life, how to detoxify your life, all these things that we've been talking about. It's basically, okay, here's what you do on day 1. Here's what you do on day 2, because this is overwhelming. Like, where do you start? Mm-hmm. In day 1, I'm going to show you how to buy a water filter, how to test your water. Day 2, how to source like good fats. Day 3, how to lower your carbohydrate consumption. Day 4, how to get better beauty products or hair body products, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm going to be revamping that whole program coming up real soon. But unlimited people can sign up for that, especially if you know someone that has cancer. You can sign up for that DIY program immediately, and you can start today.
That's fantastic. And we would just do that by your website, AlisonGannett.com, right?
Exactly. You get to see like 200 videos of my lovely shining face talking to you about motivational strategies and real life strategies that you can do every day.
Okay, good. Okay, great. And then I wanted to ask you, like, your knowledge is so vast. Where did you go to school to learn about, you know, the cancer cells, like everything that you're citing, and you can tell you're trained? I just want to know more about your education and background.
Well, I was a climate change scientist, so, you know, I have that kind of like scientific brain for sure. And then when I got sick, I actually trained with Dr. Nasha Winters for a 1-year program with her. And then I went on to training with the American Nutrition Association. And then also, I'm very fortunate in the fact that I get to work with Dr. Nasha and her team of doctors all over the world. I consult on all their clients on a daily basis. So it'll be the 3 of us in a chat room, Dr. Nasha, a doctor from somewhere in the world, and myself on a daily basis. So what's fascinating about this field is, like, you can't just like go to school about these things right here and right now, because we're literally learning about these genes on a daily basis. The new tumor testing that we have to see the personality of tumors is now all mRNA testing. It's brand new. If you brought it up with your doctor, they wouldn't even know about it. Most of them wouldn't know about it. It's changing so quickly. And again, we're so focused as a society on how do we treat something with a drug to fix the symptom, instead of looking at what the problem is. And what I really love is like ripping off that Band-Aid, Sherlock Holmesing in there, and let's find out what's actually going on. You know, if your hormones are off, is the solution to just Band-Aid it with some supplemental hormones? Or do we want to look under the hood and say, well, could it be that your mercury poisoning is throwing off your estrogen balance, for example? That it's just so exciting. I mean, the future of wellness is here and now, and it hasn't really hit mainstream, but because of the internet and because of talks with you, and, you know, just getting the message out there that we can learn more about our health than we ever knew possible. It's really a great place to be.
Yes, and you have taught us so much. Thank you so much. We're winding down. Before we close, though, like, I want to hear, you know, you don't get very often to interview a world champion skier. So tell, like, how did you get into that?
Well, it was a mistake, actually. I was skiing in Crested Butte, Colorado, where I lived, and a Warren Miller film crew saw me skiing down this gnarly run, and they said, "Would you want to be in a movie?" And I said, are you talking to me? Are you kidding? Like, I think I was still like thinking that I was that fat, dorky math geek, because I kind of was still stuck in that persona. And so then they said, you know, you should really do this as a living. And I was like, you're crazy.
Wow.
But I did. And luckily my mom, thanks Mom, she was like, you know, go for it. You know, you get to travel the world, you know, you should just, you know, quit your job. And and so I did. And, you know, I ended up having a very lucrative career skiing all over the world for 20 years. And
wow.
It's I think I have it, you know, it contributed, the over-exercise contributed to part of my ill health, because again, it's like running from a tiger 24/7. It's really, really hard on your system to be producing that much cortisol all the time. But what it taught me is that basically, and my mom also, I want to thank her for this too, is that if there's something you want really badly and you go for it, like, you can do it. it's just a matter of the mindset of deciding that you can go do it. And doing all these crazy things and jumping off these crazy cliffs and being in helicopters and competitions, and it kind of created a fearlessness in my nature that has been like, well, you know, if you want to learn how to jump off a 50-foot cliff, you start with a pebble. And if you really think about everything in life is going from that pebble to a cliff, and you think of the baby steps, you will eventually get there. Now, if you just look at the cliff, it's impossible. But if you think of it sequentially, you eventually get there. And so when I got sick, I kind of channeled that mentality into, I'm going to make myself well, and I am going to create myself. I'm going to prove everybody wrong and say I'm not going to die, and I am going to kick ass at this new project. And instead of jumping off a cliff, I'm going to be working on my stress, my insulin, and my toxins.
Mm-hmm. What a great story. You're so inspirational. I feel so honored and grateful to have had this time with you, and, you know, even more importantly, to share your story and your tips, you know, with the world. And I wish you all the best, and you're going to continue to thrive and kick ass. Yes. I know it. And well, I'm thrilled to like be part of your S.I.T, you know, program, and just the visualization, I think, for us who are listening to seeing you inside your sauna and just, you know, being grateful and taking that time to just be, you know, is absolutely wonderful. That in itself is a gift to everybody who's listening. And I hope that everybody finds it, you know, to do something. It doesn't have to be inside, you know, a sauna. It was most important is that you just, you know, you embrace that practice. Even if you start off, you said with a pebble, you start off with a minute, right?
Yes.
Right.
It just doesn't have to be hard.
Right. Just a minute to be grateful and be reflective and be, you know, in the moment, and, you know, not be so caught up in tomorrow or yesterday, you know, because today is all we know, right? Right now. That's it. Yes. You know, it doesn't get any better than right here and right now.
Be here now. That's and right. Just say that over and over for 1 minute a day. And I swear I feel tingly all over when I do it for 1 minute. It changes you on a cellular level. It's incredible.
Yeah. Well, you can tell you've been changed from a cellular level. You're exuding joy and passion and, you know, love and youthfulness and healthiness, which is just so inspirational. Again, I keep using that word, but that's like the word that I think of when I see you. So thank you again, Alison. And I want to respect your time and everybody's. So I look forward to our next time together, and I look forward to hearing more about your story and more about where you are at the time.
Well, thanks for your support. I really appreciate it. And thanks for getting the word out there. This is how we change the world, one pebble at a time.
One pebble at a time. We're right there with you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Alison. Thank you to everybody for listening. Thank you for all of your questions and your support.